Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk about the latest episode of The Flash, entitled The People versus Frost, or I guess it was called The People versus Killer Frost, but she's not Killer Frost anymore. Anyway, this episode starts out where last week's episode left off, which was at the point where Frost had turned herself in and pled guilty, and, you know, that meant she forfeited a trial, and this was the sentencing. So the state wanted to not so much put her in jail, but deprive her of her powers because they figure she's a menace. And this whole episode is about how they're going to keep that from happening to her, how Team Flash is going to help her avoid that particular penalty. At the same time that all this is happening, other parts of Team Flash, Barry specifically, are trying to track down that metahuman monster lady whose name I forget. And they're following like some kind of meta tracking device. And Barry gets a hit on the device and he decides he's going to go. And Nora says, I'll go with you. If something goes wrong and there's a fight, they won't be able to take the two of us. So she apparently is a speedster as well. I didn't know that. I mean, I realize she's the Speed Force, and it follows that she can herself move at super speed when she's embodied, but I don't know. I just didn't realize she was a speedster, so that's interesting. So anyway, Barry and Nora find this person, but apparently she isn't always in that monster state. She's a normal person, and she's, you know, working in the medical field, I guess. And Barry and Nora have a talk with her, you know, can you come down to Star Labs? We think you have a meta situation going on. And she says, no, I'm not a meta, but Barry's pretty sure that she is. And Nora kind of gets tired of him pussyfooting around and says, you know, stuff like, look, you're coming with us and that's the end of it. And we're going to make you come with us. And so the woman says, you know, no, the hell with that. She might have been on the verge of deciding to go, but she reacts badly to that as one would and decides not to go. Meanwhile, back in court, as I said, the state wants to have Frost be rid of her powers, and the way they want to do that is they want to have her take the metahuman cure. And nobody wants this to happen. Nobody on Team Flash wants this to happen. So they're outraged. They, you know, plead for an alternative. And I guess the court goes into recess while the judge considers what she wants to do, you know, jail or take away the powers or whatever. Back at Star Labs, Nora starts talking kind of crazy. She starts saying, no, here's what we're going to do. We're super fast. We can go in, grab her, bring her here, test her, bring her back. She'd never know. And Barry and Iris are like, no, we don't kidnap people, especially not without their knowledge, you know, and we're not doing that. So she sort of begrudgingly says, okay, I guess you're right. But like, you get the feeling that she's just not having any of this and that she really wants to just drop the hammer on this lady. Meanwhile, the rest of Team Flash, that's Katie, Cisco, Joe et al., they come up with a plan to make it so that the state can't give Frost the cure. They're going to stealth their way into CCPD, wrong city, and send off a pulse, kind of like an electromagnetic pulse would disable electronic devices. They're going to send out a pulse that will render all the stores of the cure that are in the police station inert. So they do this, and of course they almost get caught, but they manage it, only to find out back in court that the state knows that this was done. They think Frost did it, which of course she vehemently objects to, but they still have one vial of it. So the team didn't solve anything. They still want to give her the cure. And Katie is resisting this. Not Katie, rather. Frost is resisting this. And Caitlin sort of has this unhinged moment where she pleads with her to take the cure, because then at least she'll still be able to have Frost in her life. She won't be separated from her for however long. She would end up in jail or whatever, and wouldn't have to face the possibility that she might get killed in prison. Who knows? So she basically has a breakdown and pleads with Frost to take the cure, and Frost says, no, you don't understand. That's all I am, is my powers. You take that away, you take away who I am, and I'm not doing it. But what I want to know is, if she gets jail instead, if she gets jail versus getting the cure, she gets to keep her powers in jail? Why do I feel like the state would never allow that? They have a metahuman cure. Why would anybody that goes into the prison system with powers not have to have their powers taken away? Why would they make it so that prison guards had to deal with metas under their, in their charge? That doesn't make any sense. Seems to me, you put a meta in prison for a crime, part of the sentence is always going to be taking the powers away. So I didn't understand how that was, why that was even a question. But I guess the way they want us to see it is that, no, you normally, in a normal situation, you would get to keep your powers in prison, which again doesn't make sense, because why don't they, when somebody, how many metas in Central City have committed crimes and killed people? Don't they take their powers away all the time? Like, what, how is this the first time that it's come up? Like, and they even say, that it would set a precedent. So like, what, how is that? I don't get that. But anyway, you have to take the story as you find it, I suppose. Barry goes back to the Beastie Lady as the Flash and says, it would really be a help to me as the defender of the city if you would go in and get tested. So she agrees to go in, and they're testing her, and they're trying to separate the beast from her. And Nora comes in and loses her shit and like attacks Iris and Barry and the woman, because she's not satisfied with like trying to test her and maybe find out why she turns into that thing or whatever, because she sees it as an enemy, because this particular meta is the product of one of the forces that they're fighting this season, and Nora is the Speed Force. So she's she's very adversarial about it, and she kind of just loses her shit, and she actually kills this woman, to the horror of Barry and Iris, who fortunately were only knocked down for a second by her attack. And as Barry is fighting her, she goes to kill Iris. Barry jumps in the way. They throw energy balls at each other, and when the energy balls meet, Nora is able to take control of that, and it somehow seems to give her more power because she says thank you to Barry. And they kind of leave that part of the story there. I don't know where that's going to go. It seems like she's going to be a villain going forward, which is going to be really weird. But the episode itself didn't quite end there with the Nora murdering sociopath scene. They do in fact show Caitlin Frost back in court, saying that she will take life in prison, not just time, but life in prison with no parole, rather than take the cure. And the judge grants her request, much to the dismay of Caitlin, who doesn't want to lose her, sees her as a sister. She finds this unbearable, but Frost just didn't want to take the cure. So now she gets life in prison, which I hope isn't going to mean that Frost won't be a character on the show anymore, because I've always liked the Frost character, and I'd like to see the character come back. And Caitlin has been through so much, I'd hate to see her lose yet someone else. So I hope this is just like a bump in the road, and that down the road in the season, they're going to bring her out of prison somehow. I was thinking she could go to the governor for clemency, but the governor is the one who originally wanted her dealt with and sent that woman into CCPD. So I don't know. I'd hate to think she's giving up the character, or I don't know. Because why would they separate her into a new person on her own and then in a few episodes get rid of her? Unless Danielle Panabaker just didn't want to do the Frost thing at all anymore, and they had to figure a way to get her out of that. But then they could have done it so much more easily. I don't know. We'll have to see. I hope it's not the end of the character. I liked the character of Frost. Now, the only other thing I want to say about this episode, I liked it. Was it a great episode? No. I thought it brought up some good questions. How do you deal with criminal? What's the nature of being meta? Is that who you are? Is it just part of who you are? If you lose that, do you still have yourself? Do you not have yourself? I thought it put Danielle Panabaker through her paces as an actor, so I thought that was very good. I thought it really showed how Frost is a true hero because she stood her ground and she basically took one for the team, as it were, and the team being Central City, and did the right thing, you know, owning up to the crimes that she did commit, and taking the penalty. So I thought that was good. There was just no Flash in this episode. Why was there no Flash? They spent so much on that storyline, and you really did have to spend time on it. It isn't one that you could have shortchanged very well, but no Flash. They couldn't have figured out how to work Flash in. I mean, there was some zipping around, but there was barely any Flash in the suit doing Flash things. And I don't understand why these superhero shows are doing so much of that lately. It's kind of bothersome. But anyway, that's really all there is to say about this episode. I will be back with a review of the next one. For now, I'm going to get out of here, and I say, as always, peace and long life.